Smiling Assassin strikes again. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Change his face.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 47 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a midweek edition of the highly controversial, occasionally combustible afternoon aardvark here on a, fairly balmy Wednesday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, the host of the program. Guardsy produces the show. And are we going to 6:15 today? 6:30? 7? 6 o'clock?
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, full show.
Full program today between now and 6:30. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line will be rebooted here shortly at 646-86. And we come to find out that the state of hockey is under construction, at least at the college level. Yesterday we learned that your guy, Brad Frost, was dismissed after, what did you tell me, 19 years?
Yes, 19 years.
19 years. He's out. We got a lot of snarky texts yesterday, including one I read to Luigi, saying that the wrong hockey coach was dismissed. Motzko has been in the meat grinder among a certain segment of the hockey population for pretty much the entire season, I would say. And we come to find out today that it's being described as mutual agreement. University of Minnesota agreed to, and Motzko agreed to, a parting of the ways between the two of them. 8 years?
8 years, yeah.
8 years here, never won it all, but reached the championship game once, correct?
Yes, lost in overtime.
And was ahead and then going to the third period, correct?
Devastating loss.
More devastating than Holy Cross?
Yeah, because the title's on the line.
Oh, yeah,
that was a first-round game.
That's true. Yeah, but we're never supposed to lose in the first round.
Holy Cross that's not good. It's embarrassing. It's mythic, but that's a title game. You're right there. You're right there.
Didn't we lose a title game? Did we lose a title game in Lake Placid or a semifinal game? Because I was there for it.
I don't remember. That was in the late 80s with Wooger?
Yeah, it would have been to the Wooger.
Yeah.
I definitely covered a loss, but I can't remember if I want to say it was the semis. But we'll look that up. But the man responsible, your guy, to a large degree, one could say, what's the official title? Athletics director?
Yes, now it's named after Tom Moe because everything has to have a name in college sports. So it's the Tom Moe Athletic Director.
And the Smiling Assassin's been busy on dismissals. I mean, how many years ago was Lindsey Whalen let go?
This is Don Plitzwhite's third year,
okay.
So 3.
So 3 years ago. Then, who would have been after that? Ben Johnson?
Yep.
Would have been after that.
Yep.
And now both hockey coaches. Now you could again say, well, this one's mutual, and that sometimes is set up that way to make everybody feel a little bit better about the situation. I don't know the backstory. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's people in the hockey community that can perhaps pass along be glad to give us what we would say the backstory there, because the hockey community, there is no more. Is it fair to say there's no more opinionated community among all the sports teams as far as I'm concerned?
They're loud. Yeah, they're loud for sure.
Are there any other dismissals by Mark Coyle I'm forgetting?
I'd have to think about it.
The football coach has been there for a while.
Yep.
I guess we've kind of covered what would be classified as the major sports. So that's how many of the individuals that he has fired in this group did the Smiling Assassin also hire?
He hired
Whalen.
He hired Ben Johnson.
He
hired Motzko.
He would have had to, right? Because he's been here how many years now?
This is his 10th year.
10th year.
Yeah.
And so Frost would be the one he inherited?
Correct.
So that's always the question, of course, that comes up is you can look at it two ways. You can say, well, if you're AD at a place for a long enough time or a general manager for a long enough time, you're going to have to make changes, even amongst the people you've hired. The other way to look at it is, well, at what point do we start reconsidering the individual we've put in charge of doing the hiring. Now, the way out of that box is if your hire replacing the individual that you hired the first time is succeeding where your first hire didn't, you pretty much save yourself. That, I think, defines the current situation regarding Golden Gopher women's basketball and Dawn Plitzerwhite, correct? They're in the tournament for the first time in 7 years, hosting first and, if they win, second round games, first round game Friday night here as well. And the early indications on Niko Medved also positive. He certainly hasn't gotten the program to the place that Dawn has yet, but even though the record was not all that different than Ben Johnson's more recent years, it was, after all, Niko's first. He had even more injuries than Ben did, and still found a way most of the season to keep the team competitive through the season. But now the Smiling Assassin's on the clock again because he's got to hire a women's hockey coach. Unless there's some announcement you want to tell me about today. Is there already a news?
I don't think so, no.
It wouldn't be that fast? Sometimes it's fast.
You're right. I was down on campus today. Heard
nothing?
Didn't get any indication because Mark's on his way to St. Louis because he's also right now.
So he's one of those guys who sits at the scorer's table and looks official.
Yes.
Correct?
It's his last year on the NCAA
This is it.
committee.
Oh,
yeah.
So that revolves. You get a certain number of years.
It's a 5-year commitment, I believe.
Okay, fair enough.
This is year 5 for him.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of men's hockey, it just was announced. I don't know who broke it. Somebody broke it, and then the U almost immediately then confirmed it via press release, correct?
Yeah, within a couple of hours. John Buchagras, Booch, your guy.
Is that who nailed it?
I think that's who had it first.
Good for him.
And then everybody else kind of jumped on,
yeah.
Including The Athletic, Russo, Joe Smith.
Yeah, I saw that. In fact, they've got... Do they have exclusive Motzko quotes in their piece?
I hadn't seen the updated one. I'm not sure.
See if I can find it.
Because Bob put out a statement from the U, so I'm assuming that's what that is.
Oh, that may have been what it is then. Yeah, that's exactly right. I thought maybe it was. And the statement I read basically made it sound like, I've been doing this at one form or another for, what did he say, 42 years?
He's older.
How old was he, like 8 when he started? How old? He's not that old, is he?
He's in his 60s.
Is he in his 60s?
He's older than he looks.
Okay, yeah, he looks young.
As I remember, as this season was going on, there were rumblings about
definitely
not just what the U wanted to do, but what Bob wanted to do.
Yeah.
There were, I thought, some pretty strong rumblings, given that I'm not super connected to the hockey program. I go to a handful of games. I watch them. But in a lot of different places, you'd hear, this might be it for Bob. Like, he might just ride off into the sunset. He's got the World Junior coach. Speaking
of that, did Louis hint at that yesterday? Did Louis use the R word when I brought up Motzko yesterday and I missed it? I look back and I think he may have said something like that. I'm wondering if Louis broke it, unless I misread what he... Do you recall? Or you might have even been in the other room doing some other production work. I don't know.
I don't know if he said it like that.
Somebody who listens more closely to the show than I do, text me. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686 says, I thought I remembered after the fact something like that. And I said, I wonder if he knows something.
Well, he said something like he's had conversations with Bob about how much longer he wanted to do it.
Maybe that's what it was.
If I remember.
But I thought he used the R word.
He may have.
Yeah.
But I think he was thinking about
I wonder if
coming back and finishing it the right way and having a better season than they had.
Well, that's the question.
I thought that's what he hinted at.
The question is do you want, even if you're frustrated and even if you think you're close to the end, do you want to leave on this kind of season? This is a historically bad season for men's hockey at the University of Minnesota.
It was.
There may be a million reasons. I get it. People we've lost, regrouping, the whole bit. But by state of hockey standards, it was a bad year. There's not any way about it. So then you go with, as you say, do you want to leave that? It will be hard getting that. Do you need to cleanse the palate with 1 year of rebound, even if it doesn't necessarily mean you win a title the next year?
Right.
And he ultimately obviously decided no. And what we don't know is how much pressure might have been applied on the other side by the Smiling Assassin, because he's mild-mannered guy with you, But man, he there's no hesitation.
When he's ready to go, he doesn't mess around.
No, he doesn't.
He does not mess around.
Some of them I understand. Some of them perhaps not so much. That's the nature of the job. People who heard Louis or were listening more closely to Louis than me said that what he said yesterday was he believed what happened. Motzko wanted one last year to get to 65 and then retire.
Okay.
So he didn't go quite as far as I thought for some reason as well. Ray and Hopkins, Coyle has also fired entire sports, men's tennis, men's gymnastics, and men's track at the U. By the way, are we sure that's not a burner account from our gymnastics guy?
From Burnsy?
Are we sure Ray and Hopkins isn't
Mike Burns?
No.
John Roethlisberger.
John Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Who's never been shy about his feelings regarding the U's decision to move away from men's gymnastics, right? Do we still have women's? We
yes.
do, don't we?
Yeah, they're very good.
Men's gymnastics, we didn't have. Didn't Coyle also inherit and then fire Richard Pitino? Yeah, if you want to go back further, he did. He fired Richard Pitino as well. There was, I don't think at the time, I don't think there was a lot of push. I think there was some pushback on that. I don't think it was like everybody was saying, how dare you? I think it was one of those, could kind of go either way with Richard Pitino, as I recall it, wasn't it?
I mean, 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
It was
exactly.
it was 8 years. And
so who's the era? Who are the, you talk to people all the time. Is it Ohio State gal coming back home on the women's side? And who is it on the men's side? Do we already know who's the heir apparent that the hockey community is demanding? Because didn't the hockey community demand Motzko at one point?
Yes, they did.
Once upon a time, they said, this is a guy you got to go get.
And in all honesty, he did a really good job. I mean, a couple Frozen Fours going to the tournament. Like, the place is back. Like, his body of work
that part, is
good.
Yes.
Obviously, the way they lost the title will never be forgiven.
No.
Right?
No.
And people still talk about that. I think there's is it Augustana? I think there's a guy at Augustana that's one of us that we like. I think that's
on the men's side?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's who. I'm not the right guy, but
is that big enough?
Well, it's D1.
That's true.
He's seen as an up-and-comer.
Up-and-comer, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's who people want.
I thought we just want legends who are already established as legends, or are there not any left, really, in the world of college hockey?
I'm not the guy to ask.
Who does Micheletti want?
I don't know. He wanted Bob back in the day. He was big time on that.
Who does Fulness want?
Does that matter?
He doesn't really care as much about college as pro, though, right?
No,
he's more pro guy?
That doesn't matter.
No, I didn't say it mattered. I'm just kind of curious if he had some idea. Usually what's the Notre Dame big shots, the rich fat cats, they called the Subway alumni that supposedly they always have a list. You know, like Gumbel had his Paul Bear list, that at a place like Notre Dame, they've always got their list of okay, if we got an opening at head coach at football, here's who's immediately on the list. I'm just assuming the hockey insiders, the Gopher Subway alumni, always have that list at the ready.
They sure do.
And that they got Motzko, but now that's the next man up. And of course, a lot could have changed about who that would be over the course of the 8 years that he's been here.
I'm sure they have their names.
646-86 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Remember when Waylon left, when Waylon leaving was mutual also. Well, we've discussed that with Waylon. I think there was, do you think that's, looking back on it, the fair description on Waylon? Or do you think it was more, we're going to do this and we want to give you, originally it was going to be an ambassador job, right? That was the whole deal.
Yep.
That it was more of a dismissal than that, or she viewed it that way? Because when she came in eventually, I thought she almost seemed relieved that maybe she wasn't quite ready for it, or it just didn't feel right, or the timing. You couldn't say, as she said, you can't say no to your alma mater.
Right.
Even if you don't feel you're technically ready for it.
Right.
But then in the end, I thought she ended up being relieved. But I don't know if that was at the moment when it actually happened as well, because that was presented as mutual.
It
like
was.
Motzko, correct?
Yes, and then if you recall, it was just Mark at the press conference. Waylon was supposed to be there.
That's right, last minute.
It got changed last minute.
In
Didn't
the
go
elevator.
Well, got ugly.
Got back off the elevator.
Yeah. So, I think that was not as mutual, but I do think as time passed, I think it was, like you say, more relief.
All right, let's get an late break in. We'll have a short segment leading to our first guest. I'm looking forward to him at 3:30. We'll give you details on the 3:30 guest. 4:30 guest was just on a week ago, but I think circumstances demand that we have him on again. And, of course, the Wednesday regular, Pat Kessler, who is going to explain the difference between a kickback and fraud. I hope he can do it because no one else seems capable of even pretending that there's a meaningful distinction. Stay tuned. Garage Guy writes, I was the one who asked about Motzko's status yesterday with Luigi, and in hindsight, the way he answered seemed as if he was searching for an answer, almost like he knew what was coming, and obviously he had to. Have you heard any rumblings, Dan, regarding the Gophers going after former U of M legend and current Rogers Bantam AA head coach, Grand Rapids grad, Johnny Brill?
Is that one of his buddies?
I asked. Bring in Pat Ferschweiler. Do you know him? Pat Ferschweiler is Western Michigan guy, apparently. There's a lot of votes coming in for, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Pat Ferschweiler. Hockey community likes Garrett. The Augustana guy, do you know how to pronounce that last name? It's Raboin.
I don't for sure.
Is it Raboin?
Raboin sounds right.
I'm going to go with that. And Ferschweiler is the other name from Western Michigan that is coming up a lot. He seems to be, among these rubes, the one they're most interested in. Ohio State coach Steve Rolick, or is it Rolick, former Hill Murray alum. That's on the men's side, I assume, correct? Because we talked about the women's coach at Ohio State coming back home, right, potentially. I have... Larry Mandela guy has two great ideas for Gopher men's hockey coach. Do you care to guess either one of them?
Larry Mandela guy?
Yes.
Well, one of them has to be Tony Dungy. Who's the other one?
Mike Grant.
Oh, I should have had that one.
Tony Dungy.
Well, Dungy's available.
He is.
He's out at NBC.
That? Now, is that mutual? It didn't sound like.
No, I don't think it was.
It sounded like he wanted to stay.
Yeah, wouldn't you?
And they didn't. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great gig.
Former Gopher Grant Patolny has been rumored.
National champion here.
Grant.
He's at Northern Michigan, I think, still.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
Gopher hockey lost to Harvard in the late 1980s. He's, I think, bringing up another.
That was the game you were thinking about,
Is that the one I was thinking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, that may have been it. Yeah, in Lake Placid.
In the Frozen Four.
Yeah. Did Coyle fire Jay Robinson? I think he did.
Yes, remember there was big investigation.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with performance.
Right.
I don't think he would have doubted that he was very effective. It was all the ancillary stuff that, and it was a volatile issue at the time, as you recall.
Yes.
Because Jay Robinson doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down.
Yes,
Is he still around the area? Do we know?
I don't know.
Have any idea? I've kind of lost touch with him. Lastly, did you hear Charch's comments on Kyler Murray? I did not. Is Charch a Kyler guy?
I did not hear.
Just curious.
He joined Nordo today, I know, but I didn't hear what he said.
Interesting. I will try to find out. I'm very curious to hear what Church of Charch, who I think is still a Cousins guy. Maybe he's bitter, but maybe not. Maybe he praised him and said this is the perfect opportunity for him. I have absolutely no working idea. Done as a Society will be part of the broadcast today. We got a lot of good aid section stuff to get to, even before Kessler joins at 5:30 tonight. I mentioned the U.S. loses the gold medal game, right, in the WBC Classic. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, proof that athletes of all ages can respond in the same childish way. We're being given our medals around our necks, and there were a couple of players who no sooner was the medal around their neck, they took it off and started chewing on it. Well, that part I'm exaggerating, but I don't know what that's. I guess again that shows we're so competitive.
Right.
We really wanted to win it.
Yep.
No kidding. Is anybody going to doubt that, even if you just accept the medal and wear it and at least for 5 feet when you walk back to the dugout, are we really going to be impressed with, he really is taking it hard? They all took it hard. You could tell. They did feel it.
I'm sure they did. Which
is part of the way you figure out that the event was a success to that extent, right? Now, we still got to work on Major League Baseball figuring out, who will participate and who won't. But we'll get into all of that with Kernan at 4:30. There's a new book out on Larry Joe Bird, and it's less about his pro career and much more about his college career at Indiana State. The timing is perfect, obviously, with the big dance about to begin. I guess the play-in games did begin yesterday. And writer of said book, he's an outstanding journalist who's written a definitive book on Pete Rose, now has one out called Heartland, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and the Miracle of Larry Bird. We'll catch up with Keith O'Brien when we return. There's certain names in the business that if they write about something, you're almost immediately also interested in said product. Our guy Jack McCallum is one of them. Jack's been on with us for years. I used to, cover stuff back in the Inkstein Wretch days where I'd end up hanging around the all-time Hall of Famer, Jack McCallum. And he recently had a review of a book called Heartland, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and the Miracle of Larry Bird in the Wall Street Journal. And that certainly got my attention, although anything related to Larry Joe Bird I'm always going to be interested in. And we're pleased to be joined by the author of said book, Keith O'Brien, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Keith, thank you very much for the time. I assume it never hurts to get a nice, favorable review from Jack McCallum, correct?
Well, that's right. I mean, as you said, Jack McCallum is a legend in basketball writing circles. And so, it certainly meant a lot to get that review in the Wall Street Journal from him.
Tell me a little bit about, obviously, as you well know, there have been a lot of Larry Bird books written. It looks to me from afar, and I'm about, I think, 3 chapters in, just got it the other day. It looks to me like you said, all right, let's center on one part of his life, or a couple parts of his life, before, obviously, he takes off with Magic Johnson to allegedly save the National Basketball Association. Is that why you centered on that period, that there was maybe some room for some scholarly reporting?
That's right. Heartland is an origin story. This narrative unfolds between 1973 and 1979. It unfolds almost exclusively in rural Indiana. And, the reason why I focused it that way was pretty simple. I feel like all these years we've been telling this story one way. We always do the Bird Magic thing. Yep. We always lump these two guys in together. And, I get it. I understand why we do that. Of course, Bird and Magic will play each other in that epic championship game in March 1979, the most watched college basketball game of all time. And then they are going to go on to become icons, redefine, save the NBA. So I get it. But in the 70s, Bird and Magic barely know each other. They have met one time before that championship game in 79. In that one time, they hardly spoke. So, they're not friends. They're not rivals. They're not anything. And because of that, what I really wanted to do here was tell this story in a slightly different way, change the perspective and focus in, on this origin story. And when you do that, you do get this entirely different story. And more importantly, maybe, Dan, you get an entirely different cast of characters. And these are the characters who shape, form, and at times save Larry Bird.
In the Wall Street Journal review I referenced earlier, McCallum writes that you go deep on Mr. Bird's sometimes gothic boyhood. He was the great white hope, while his life experience more closely paralleled that of many African-American players. Do you agree?
Well, certainly there are some parallels there. I think the analogy that Jack is making is that, many black players, especially in the 70s, are growing up in the inner city, enmeshed in poverty, with limited options, and basketball is a way out. That was certainly the case for Larry Bird. He is living on the edge of poverty in the second poorest county in Indiana. French Lick, in West Baden Springs, where Larry grows up, are in Orange County. It's one of the poorest counties in America in the 70s. And Larry feels that growing up. His father certainly feels it too. Unemployment in Orange County hovered around 20% in the 70s. Larry's father was in and out of work, but was often his own worst enemy. Joey Bird, struggled with drinking, struggled with alcoholism. All of these, adversities are in Larry's background. And for these reasons, he isn't dreaming about playing college basketball. He isn't dreaming about going to the NBA. Those are impossible dreams, even for someone like Larry Bird in Orange County, Indiana. All he wants to do, Larry, is maybe one day play varsity basketball at Springs Valley High School in French Lick. Maybe one day be as good as his older brother, Mark, who was considered to be one of the best shooters the locals had ever seen. So that was as far as Larry Bird was willing to dream in the 1970s.
One of the subplots that you explore early is especially fascinating to me, because you lay out, Larry, of course, was agreed to attend and did begin his freshman year at Indiana University. He got there, I believe, in the fall of 74. I got there in the fall of 73. And the great irony for me is, if Larry Bird had stayed to be a part of what were two of the best college basketball teams of all time, back-to-back, one that got upset, and the next year, the last team that remains undefeated on the men's side to win the title, I was covering that team, and I do think about, my God, having a chance to cover Larry Bird. I stayed. He left. Give us a sense of what you learned about why he left. What led to a fairly, again, he clearly made out fine on the rebound, but nevertheless, he's going to go to play for Bob Knight. He seems ready to play for Bob Knight. Dave Bliss, the assistant coach, who I knew well, that you quote extensively, was sort of the front man on that. What was the backstory, or at least part of the backstory you can explore here, that I know is a big part of the early chapters of this book, about why Larry Bird just could not handle Indiana University?
I think you can boil it down to two things. Bobby Knight, the great Bobby Knight, did not know what he had in Larry Bird. And maybe more problematic, he didn't know Larry Bird at all. You mentioned Dave Bliss. Dave is an assistant coach at Indiana in the 70s. Dave Bliss has been with Bobby Knight since his days at Army in the 1960s. It's Bliss who's recruiting Bird. It's Bliss who knows him. It's Bliss who's advocating for Bird. And by the way, Bird did need advocates. In 1974, Larry Bird is not considered a top 15 player in the state of Indiana. I mean, I want to say that again because it's so shocking. According to the experts, there are 15 players better than Larry Bird. So Knight signs him, but he doesn't really know what he has. And then Bird gets to campus, and he feels poor there. He feels alone there. He feels unwanted there in that locker room filled with all that talent that's going to lead that Indiana team to a 63-1 record over the next two seasons. And for all of those reasons, Bird wants to leave. He wants to go home. And again, Bird wasn't dreaming of playing college basketball, so he doesn't feel like he's walking away from something.
Right.
He just knows he's unhappy and he's gone. And, I pinpointed the exact day that Bird leaves. It's September 13th, 1974, the third Friday of school. And on that day, Bird walks into Dave Bliss's office, says he's leaving, and there's no way for Bobby Knight to stop him, because on that night, Bobby Knight's not on campus. He's a about 100 miles north in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he's giving a talk that night, and people are paying $25 at the door to hear the great Bobby Knight talk.
We are chatting with Keith O'Brien. His new book is called Heartland, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and the Miracle of Larry Bird, out in hardcover pretty much everywhere, ebook version as well, certainly available. You write extensively about a guy I covered as well, Jim Wisman, because one of the theories that has been advanced forever is that among the miscalculations was the decision to room Larry Bird with Jim Wisman, a guy who, what's the best way to put it? I mean, he came to school with steamer trunks worth of clothes. I mean, he had everything. And Larry had what? Maybe like 2 pairs of jeans and a couple of shirts. That was about it. And I guess we'll never know if they'd done a better job pairing Bird with somebody else. It may be oversimplified. But that is one of the stories you write about that I had heard about previously, too, that there's some regret that just was not the way to ease Larry Bird onto the Indiana University campus.
Yeah, I think we need to be fair to Jim Wisman. His father was a postal carrier. Yeah. It's not like he was raised with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Yes.
But compared to Larry Bird, yeah, I mean, he had money. He had things that Larry didn't have. Jim Wisman was also a good-looking guy.
Yes.
Popular, articulate. Just the opposite of Larry in so many ways. And again, in fairness to Bobby Knight and Dave Bliss for a moment, there are only 4 freshmen on that team. They paired the first 2 that signed together, and they paired the next 2 who signed together, Wisman and Bird. That's the plan.
Right.
But it sort of gets to what I was saying a moment ago. They don't know Larry. They don't understand Larry. It's a correction that Indiana State, by the way, is going to make. So, after Bird leaves and goes back to French Lick, I don't think people have an understanding of just how dark it gets that winter. Larry Bird is fully gone within 10 months. He is home in French Lick. He has briefly attended vocational school and played basketball there. Then he's dropped out from there, gotten a job with the city where, among his other duties, he's hauling trash. And while all of this is happening, his father fully unravels tragedy on the doorstep of the Bird house. And in this moment, Bird is telling his mother and others that he is not going back to college. He is finished with that. And, I've learned one thing about Larry Bird. When he says something, he means it. And nobody can break through to him. But one man does. And it's a down on his luck assistant coach at Indiana State, a man named Bill Hodges. Bill Hodges is from rural Indiana. He's a lot like Larry. He was raised in rural Union Township. He knows how to bale hay. He's stubborn like Larry. And Bill Hodges really pursues Larry and connects with him. And 1 year later, in the summer of 75, when Larry reports to Terre Haute, Indiana, Bill Hodges does things for Larry Bird that Bobby Knight never did. Number one, Bill recruits to play at Indiana State a teammate of Larry's from Springs Valley High School. And he rooms these 2 guys together, Danny King and Larry Bird. So Larry is with a guy he knows from French Lick. That's number one. Number 2, Bill Hodges helps get Larry a job, with the richest guy in Terre Haute, a job that helps put money in Larry's pocket. And really it is, Bill Hodges who builds a safe place for Larry. And Larry Bird did need a safe place in 1975.
Tell me about, or for the audience, about, but about what Hancock Construction is, how that fits into this story.
Hancock Construction is a team that Larry Bird is playing for when Bill Hodges goes looking for him in the spring of 1975.
That's too good.
And, Hancock Construction is effectively glorified pickup men's basketball. I mean, I once played on an over 30 men's basketball team that was not all that different from Hancock Construction. This is a team, filled with guys who were in their late 20s, early 30s, who were once really good at basketball, played in high school or college, but now had day jobs and mortgages, wives and kids. And they're playing in what was known as the Industrial League. This is not, elite basketball. This is rural Indiana basketball played in rural Indiana gymnasiums on weeknights. And that's exactly how far Larry Bird has fallen, by the spring of 1975. He's playing on Hancock Construction, a team, where on any given night, maybe the top 7 players show up, or maybe they can't make it because they've got work or they've got a family obligation.
Did Larry Bird not know how good he was?
No, he did know how good he was. I mean, that is one thing that, is true. He's not a trash talker in those days like people will find on TikTok, in his NBA years.
Right.
But he is fully confident in his own abilities. He had that confidence from his days at Springs Valley High School. Larry was just stubborn. He did not want to do something that he did not want to do. And he did not want to stay at Indiana. So he was gone. And then he didn't want to go back to college. So that was his choice. And so, he knew he was good. And even in that Industrial League, playing for Hancock Construction, I mean, on some nights, Larry Bird is putting up enormous numbers. Talking about nights where he's got 25 rebounds, 30 points, 40 points a night. He is playing and he knows he's great. But he is just sort of lost and slipping through the cracks.
And is it fair to say, how do you look at it in terms of Indiana State knowing what to do to make him comfortable? Does that fall into the classification of they just were more aware, they were more alert to it, or they kind of had to be because they were in a different circumstance, so they needed what they hoped, obviously. I don't know if they could have possibly anticipated what he could end up being, even at the college level, but that they were better at it just because they needed to more than perhaps Indiana did.
Back to Bill Hodges. Right. He's a straight-talking guy, still alive today. A good salesman who was known that if he could get into the living room, he could close the deal with a player, with a family. He could sign them. But he wasn't also like the slick, recruiter who showed up giving the same speech to the same kid on a different night, right? Bill Hodges knew that Larry was different. He knew that Larry was not your typical recruit. Bill crafts a plan for Larry that works for Larry. And again, Bill gets him because, Bill grows up poor in rural Indiana. Bill grows up in a house with no running water, no indoor plumbing. Bill has a father who's not fully present in his life and doesn't fully understand what he's doing. These two guys connect, and it really is that connection that, coaxes Larry to come back to school and coaxes Larry to stay at school. In that year, that first year at Indiana State, Larry's got to do one last hard thing. He's got to wait the whole year before he can suit up for the Sycamores. He's got to pay a price for having transferred. He's got to miss an entire year of his college career. And that's a really hard year for Larry. And at one point, Bill Hodges and the head coach at Indiana State, a man named Bob King, they get a key for Larry to the local boys club so that Larry could shoot anytime he wanted, day or night. Bill Hodges recounted for me, returning from late night recruiting trips in rural Illinois or rural Indiana and driving downtown and seeing, the lights in the boys club on in the middle of the night. Bill Hodges would walk in. It's midnight. It's 1 a.m. and there's Larry Bird all alone shooting.
Did Hodges believe they could beat Michigan State in the title game?
Absolutely. every man in that locker room believed they could beat Michigan State in that title game. And, I watched every minute of that 1978-79 season, that miracle season where Indiana State goes 33-0, rumbling into that final game and captures the hearts of America. A great many millions of people are tuning in that night, not for Bird magic, but for the Cinderella story that was Indiana State. They had just beaten Arkansas, which had Sidney Moncrief and a couple other future NBA players. They had just beaten DePaul, that has Mark Aguirre and a very talented squad. They fully believed they could beat Michigan State. And, it's just one of those nights where the calls don't go their way, the shots don't go their way, and there are a couple turning points late. Where, if the ball bounces differently or the whistle blows differently, maybe that outcome is different.
I'm referring back to the review I mentioned at the start from Jack on your book. He writes, Mr. Bird carried the weight of a calamity you never get over. And the calamity he's talking about, which you hinted at or referenced, is the suicide of his father. I guess it's almost impossible to calculate how that weight weighs on someone, what it does, how it changes them. What kinds of things did you learn in that regard?
Well, today we would have a word for this. We would call this a trauma. And, when this happens, Larry Bird is 18 years old. He has just turned 18. And this is in the middle of that dark winter where he has left Bloomington, he is checked out, and he is playing for Hancock Construction. In 2026, an 18-year-old young man, a boy, would have a support network around him, caregivers, therapists, all of that. That doesn't exist in rural Indiana in the 1970s. Larry really does have to shoulder this in a great many ways alone. And I'll tell you this, to give you a sense of how he shouldered that. In every interview I did with the people who were closest to Larry in the 1970s, and I'm talking about his best childhood friends, his head coaches, Bill Hodges, his teammates at Indiana State, I would always ask him, did Larry ever talk to you about his father? Did he ever talk about the suicide? And the answer was the same every time. No, he never did.
It's remarkable. To the surprise of no one who over the years, covered Larry Bird, covered his games, certainly in the pro level, he did not, I don't think he sat down with you for an interview for this book. So did that in any way discourage you, or do you think in the end it actually enhances your reporting because you can get there, you just have to get there through other people who, frankly, might even be more honest than Larry Joe Bird might have been if he had chatted with you. How did that change this whole process for you?
Well, it didn't change anything. Obviously, as a historian, as a journalist, I want to talk to everybody. And certainly want to talk to the central, protagonist in a narrative. And I made great efforts to try to talk to Larry Bird. But, I have learned over the years through this book, through my past books, through my book on Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, that, while it is great to talk to that central character, you can often get a more accurate portrait by talking to 15, 40, 75 people around that person. I believe I did that here. And, this is a story that's bigger than Larry Bird. This is a story of a team, a time, a place, a moment. And it's a moment that's so big that it really does pick them all up. Not just Bird and Magic, but the people in that locker room in Terre Haute, Indiana in the 1970s. This book came out about 2 weeks ago. And on the first night, on the launch night, I was back in Terre Haute and I was doing an event downtown at the convention center, about 100 meters from the arena where Larry Bird became famous. And for that event, 9 players of that 1979 Indiana State Miracle team and head coach Bill Hodges, now in his early 80s, join me on stage, in conversation about that season, that time in their lives. And the enormous crowd came out of locals and Indiana State fans. It was emotional for the guys on the stage. It was emotional for the people out there in the audience. This moment was so big. In some ways, it changed an entire town.
I assume you sent the book to Larry?
I know Larry has the book, and I have not heard from him.
And I assume he wasn't one of the 9 for the opening?
Gosh, that would have been great. But no, he wasn't one of the 9.
Yeah. Well, I hope he, at some point he reads it. Although, like you say, being the type he is, he may never. That's sort of the nature of him, I think, to a large degree. Continued success. I'm sure this book's going to do great. The Pete Rose book was outstanding and a terrific success. Like I said, I'm about 3-4 chapters in, and I appreciate you giving us extended time today. And I hope, I'm sure it'll go well. I have no doubt about that. But good luck.
Thanks. Good to speak with you.
Absolutely. Thanks again. That is Keith O'Brien, a new Larry Bird book. There's a million Larry Bird books, but I think he's hit a sweet spot here, which is centering on his upbringing and the Indiana State story. That's a story that's been explored, but maybe not to this depth and this detail. And he's one of the best when it comes to these kinds of books. So it's in hardcover right now, Heartland. Keith O'Brien is the author. Don't forget, we've got Kevin Kernan in about a half hour, and we've got Pat Kessler in 90 minutes.